Welcome back to Shotgun The Aux podcast. Today you're listening to your host Tom, and we're joined by a very special guest representing Bristol and Green Brick Records. It's the Melancholic Soul King, producer, singer, artist, and all-round nice guy. It's Mac Lloyd. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, well, I'm doing really, really well, man. How are you? You good?
Yeah, not too bad, man. Not too bad. We were just catching up a minute ago. We've been meaning to make this happen for some time, so apologies my side. Obviously, we're really fucking organised behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's like both parties, man. It's not just you. Don't worry. It's just been one of those weeks, I think. So good to get it going now, though.
Definitely, man. So anyone listening who, the people listening may not know who you are. So who is Mac Lloyd? And I want this described in the third person, like Stone Cold Steve Austin.
I like that.
I'm joking, man. Do it however you want.
So I'd say, like, I don't know, I'm just like sort of a singer-songwriter producer that specializes in, as you said, like melancholic soul. I try and sort of really push the boundary on like my openness in my songwriting, and try to fuse sort of elements of like classic soul with like modern production, and then elements of sort of jazz and old rock and stuff. There's bits of everything in there, but I'd say that melancholic soul is the best way to sort of package up what I do.
I rate that, man. I rate that. So the new single, To the Brim, dropped recently, which is the first single from the forthcoming EP, Melancholic Soul Club, which is out on the 18th of March. So next week, people, go and find that. So the track itself that dropped, I mean, we talked about it when you sent it to me. It's like it's a really good hybrid of R&B, soul, experimental rock. It's beautifully produced. The video is also out now, right? On This and That Media directed the video.
Yeah, my man Dom. It was so we made the song, and obviously like the song itself and a few of the others on the EP are a few years old. So we actually filmed that EP. I filmed the video for that song, I'd say about 2.5 years ago. And yeah, it was good to work with him because obviously he's sort of blown up and is doing massive things now. But it was well put together. We actually had to film it over 2 days because the initial idea that we had sort of got scrapped. So we went with the idea that you see now with Pippa, the choreographed dancer, and she absolutely smashed it, man. I'm really, really pleased with how that video came out in the end.
100%, man. And it's all shot in like monochrome, isn't it? It's kind of really it's a good kind of demonstration of the mood that I think it conveys in that song. And there's like when we first spoke and you asked me my opinion on it, I said as a compliment, it reminded me of like early Radiohead. I think it was the initial like chord progression of the song. What's the like response been like so far?
It's been really good. Like it's been majorly positive. Obviously, I sort of knew when I was like, even when I was writing the song, that it was like different to sort of like a little bit darker than some of the other pieces that I've written, sort of bordering on like a lot of alternative rock and stuff that I listen to, and a lot of grunge. But the response has been really, really good, man. Like the support's just been like overwhelming, really. Like people being sort of nice about the openness of the track, relating to specific lyrics, because obviously it's quite an open song in itself. And then also the response to the actual like production's been good, because obviously it's pushing the like dark side a bit more, like try to incorporate elements of like dubstep, which I used to mix and stuff as well. So yeah, I think like the response has been, in terms of people's reaction, all the things that I wanted it to be, really. Like people have sort of picked out the things, like you said, with the references to the music that I love. So it's been everything that I really wanted it to be, really.
Yeah, man, it's beautifully produced.
Thank you.
And coming back to the lyrics you mentioned, there's a lyric where you say, "My friends think I've got my shit together, but I'm just hanging by a thread," and that really like resonated with me, and I think probably resonates with quite a lot of people as well. There's like a perception that everything's fine on the surface, but sometimes we struggle to see the wood through the trees because we're so like in on ourselves. And there's like a persona that we exude to the world, and you don't really shy away from these topics in the track and previous tracks that you've done. So you don't shy away from talking about mental health, which is kind of candidly represented in this track. But what was the inspiration behind the song? Was it just your own kind of personal journey?
I was at that point, right? I was just having like a really, really rough like adjustment period. Like I'd just started this new job, and it was just before I was going to find out that I was going to become a dad, and I was sort of like off the back of, I was basically in the period of sorting my shit out. Before that, I'd had like a few like sort of traumatic events that had gone on when I was living in Bristol that had like affected me for like a year and a half after that. And I speak about this in the acoustic interview, but there was a long period after I'd sort of the traumatic situations had happened where like my mindset just wasn't shifting. Like I couldn't get back into a positive mindset. And I was just like sort of, as the lyrics say, just like literally overwhelmed by the stuff that had happened in the past and this transition period of me like starting this new job. And then soon after, obviously, I found out that I was having a kid and stuff, which was a game changer. But in that period, I was just like completely lost. I just felt like completely overwhelmed by all the things that happened. I didn't think that there was any sort of like reconciliation with those situations, you know. And I think there's a big thing about the aftermath of a traumatic situation and how long it can actually affect someone and for how long. Because as we all know, everyone's situation is incredibly personable to them. One person could go through something traumatic that the next person could go through, but it could take that person 2 years longer than the next person to get over it. And that's sort of what I was trying to express through To the Brim, that middle section of the unknowingness, you know?
Yeah, man. I think that's, I mean, it's like that lyric from Moment of Truth from Guru, you know, like, don't be quick to judge. You know, we don't know the hardships people don't speak of. That always kind of, that lyric's always stuck out in my mind.
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
as like humans, we are very judgmental in nature. Like it just kind of comes naturally, and you have to check yourselves at times
Yeah,
because everyone's going through different things which are relative to their own experience. But it's
yeah,
just
for
awesome
sure.
how you're able to take said trauma and turn it into something this incredible in art form. So
Thank you.
props to you, man.
Thank you,
Um,
man.
honestly, man, it's an incredible record, and if it's indicative of the EP, then yeah, we've got a lot to look forward to. But
Yeah, I'm really excited to release it, man. It's well, yeah, it's melancholic as fuck. So
yeah, man,
you know,
it's you in it. It's you in
there's not gonna be any like shock soul jams in there or anything like that.
it. Any power
It's
ballads?
nah, none of that. Not yet, not yet. I'm
Oh,
working on that. Working on
mate, yeah, I
that.
want like a 25 track power ballads. Takes 3 days to listen to. I'm all
Oh
for
yeah,
that.
we'll
But
put it in the books and see where it goes.
well, we were talking before, and you were saying how, due to kind of the different influences you draw from, it can be quite challenging to know where to market your music
Mm.
because it's kind of so hard to categorize. But predominantly, I'm guessing, just from like my perception, your exposure's been the UK hip hop audience. You know,
Mm.
you've done bits for kind of wordplay. You know, your lock-in sessions. You did the acoustic session, but what are your thoughts on this, man? In terms of you know, tapping into new audiences, and what's your, have you got a plan for that?
So like firstly, the like love that I've been shown from the UK hip hop and soul scenes and stuff has been like so awesome. Like everyone like yourselves and Wordplay and like Rares at Green Brick and obviously have just sort of like welcomed me in with open arms, and I can't fault that at all. The one thing is obviously because I'm not like strictly a hip hop artist, it just makes like the more experimental stuff. I wouldn't say like really hard to promote, but it just puts a bit more of like a challenge on how we're gonna like sort of build the press releases and pitch them to like certain other blogs, because it's like if like, you know, we pitch to like an alt rock blog, they're gonna see sort of like that, you know, it's predominantly hip hop. But we're just at the moment we're just sort of trying to hit any and every sort of relevant publication, even if it's like we have to sort of sell it as like, oh, this is a bit more experimental to what you um, would usually sort of promote, just because it's the whole like cast in a big net to see what comes through, like the typical marketing technique, really. And because me being the awkward fuck that I am, I love sort of like switching up my shit with every release. So I'm obviously that I can be awkward as hell to market, because it's like one release is like purely soul influenced soul jams, the next influence is like a funky EP that I did with Rez, and then the next EP is like super sad alt rock soul. So I probably shoot myself in the foot a little bit by doing that, but I don't know. It keeps me on my toes.
Definitely, man. I hear that, but at the same time, I still think thematically there is consistency throughout your project. So even though there are shifts in kind of genre, there's still you at its core in terms of like the music and the instrumentation, the voice.
Yeah.
It's so it's not as if it's so jarring to listen to your discography up to this point at least. So
Yeah,
um,
that's good to hear. That's good to
yeah,
hear.
yeah, man, exactly. But so I watched the acoustic session too. That was really, really sick. So anyone listening or watching this podcast, I urge you to go check that out. So it's really cool. You can still embrace like the live music, you know, component of things during this time. But has the current situation, being COVID, presented different opportunities to you from a writing and production perspective? Because
Yeah,
assuming
so
you're in a lot more focusing on that kind of thing.
yeah, so like before COVID I was like working two jobs, like at a pub and like doing some window cleaning and stuff. And then like after like obviously when the lockdown hit, I got offered some IT work which covered like the same amount of bills basically. So I had like way more time to produce. And I basically just like spent a lot more time honing like the sounds for this EP because it's quite an old project. So I sort of spent a bit more time with like the actual tonality of the tracks and mixing them down. And then I got to the point where I was confident enough to like actually mix and master this EP myself. So I basically just thought, fuck it, I may as well try and master it myself and put it out. So I wouldn't necessarily say too much like I've learned mad amounts of production techniques, but I've learned like mixing and mastering techniques, which is obviously massively beneficial in the long term. But I've definitely written like a lot of stuff over the last year that we're hopefully going to see trickle down over the next like sort of 12 months, 18 months.
Nice one, man. Did you mix and master the new project yourself as well?
Yeah. So I did the Soul Jams, which was like the YouTube series initially, and
Hmm.
that was sort of like something that me and Reswick wanted to do so that we had sort of more content for like Insta and YouTube, and it gave me a bit more like room to experiment with my mixing and mastering because I wanted to get to the point where I was sort of a self-functioning machine in a way. And then I had the Melancholic Souls Club EP, and I was just like, it's just kind of sat there. I may as well get like all the stems are sat there ready to go. I may as well give it a go. And then after like a couple of weeks, I was like, oh, this is actually sounding pretty tight. And then I sort of just started delving into like researching mastering. It's not the best mastering, it is rough around the edges, but it's all me at the end of the day. So I feel that if it's going to be for any particular project that I do that for, where I mix and master it myself, it should be for this one because it's so personable, really, or
Yeah,
really
man.
personal to me. So yeah, just learning to mix and master somewhat.
No, I think that's cool, man. You mentioned about having the like a stream of content coming out on for Instagram and stuff like that. As an artist, do you find that it's the side of things where you have to like self market and promote your music? Do you ever kind of struggle with that side of things? Because I know a lot of like creative people, artistic people who are very impulsive. They that they'll create something, they want to get it out there straight away, and sometimes it
Yeah.
takes an element of the constraint to be like, wait a minute, I need to package this properly, I need to think about how I want to roll it out. And has your like kind of professional relationship with Res helped that in a way to
Yeah.
market your music?
Yeah. So like in terms of the having a stream of content to sort of nail that part of the question down, uh firstly the create like if you're running your own page, and I'm sure you know this as well, like creating a consistent stream of content that is like of a high quality can be like really jarring sometimes. But if you have like a project to work on, it's not so bad. So between like staying busy with like the releases, the videos and stuff like that, it's not too bad. In terms of like holding back and not posting it when you want to because you think it's fucking amazing, I'm like only really learning that over the last few years. I've always prided myself, I'd say, on like presenting myself from the get-go with Mac Lloyd professionally, but there have been times where like I've either posted something a little bit early that I definitely should have held on to, and I'm doing that now. Like I'm trying to be really formulaic with what I give people and how much I ask of people as well. Like I'm trying to give away like a lot of stickers and stuff to sort of like combat, in a way, like try and do giveaways to combat the amount I'm asking from people, because I don't want to just be asking of people to sort of check this, check that. I want people to like have some sort of like reciprocated value to checking out the music. Like if they really like it, then sick, grab a sticker pack. Like I'm happily hook you up type thing.
I saw those stickers, man. It's like Melancholic Soul, isn't it?
Yeah.
The little
So
like sick design. I really
yeah,
rated that.
I had to pay homage to 3 Feet High and Rising with that design. Like when I made the initial t-shirt designs, I was just like noodling around in like a little notebook and sent it to my graphic designer. I was like, Melancholic Soul Club, Mela Soul. Hip hop heads are gonna fucking love that one. So it's like a no-brainer, really.
Yeah, man.
But yeah. So like, just to sort of wrap up the content thing, I think with the thing, going back to what you said about Res, I'd say that like definitely working with Green Brick has helped, like in terms of like getting products finished and then creating your schedule and stuff. Like being like, right, let's get like sort of like the video done, or like let's get like at least the core section of the project done, and then plan out all the release dates, and then you're working to your dates, as opposed to being like, oh, I made this song, I'm going to put it out next week. Oh shit, I need artwork. Oh no, I need to do a video. Blah, the video's coming out like 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Like that disorganization is sort of things that I guess I'd sort of done a lot myself when I was producing hip hop long before that, and I'd got like minimal results and stuff.
Yeah, it's just a learning curve, though, isn't it? And it makes sense. I suppose the more time you're taking to invest in your own craft and making sure it's all packaged properly before rolling out, then it's only going to like pay dividends at the end of the day, man. But on the segue onto the stuff with Res One, because last year you dropped the Hindsight Hotel project.
Yeah, man.
Again, instrumentation, production, singing really kind of lends itself to cross over with hip hop. And you both killed it on that project, man. So personally, I think that you brought out the best in each other on that project. Like, not obviously yourself with the soul and like the instrumentation and the production, but Rez with like the rapping, and even like he had tried his hand at singing a bit on it as well. It just came together really nicely, man. So how did things come about initially with Green Brick? Because I remember chatting to Rez on the podcast just shy of 2 years away, 2 years ago now. And he brought you up. He was just like, yeah, we've signed a new guy, Mac Lloyd. Like, it's completely different to what you expect. It's not hip hop, but he's something special. So from that moment on, kept an eye out.
So with Rez, I actually, linking back to my man Dom from This and That Media, I owe a lot to Dom. I really do. I owe a lot to both Dom and Rez, because without being friends with Dom and working with Dom, I wouldn't have been introduced to Rez, because he actually hooked up that link up. So a few years ago, shortly after we filmed the To The Brim video, I was moving out of Bristol to move in with my missus so that we could move into our first house to expect our son. And on the day that I was moving out of Bristol, I linked to meet up with Rez, and that's how I met Rez. And he was basically like, we sat down and had a chat by the waterfront in Bristol, and I could just tell immediately that we were, even though making different music, that we were very much on the same page with how we wanted to promote our stuff and how we wanted to schedule things out. We have very similar tastes as well. So it all came together through Dom, really. And then naturally, as time went on, I was already expecting a kid, and then Rez found out that he was expecting his son. And then I think that obviously added like a huge sort of like strength to the relationship, because we immediately had something that we both related to on another level outside the music. So yeah, I think that's sort of how the relationship sort of came about and then got strengthened. In terms of writing it, we actually didn't write much of it in person together. A lot of it was written, again, because of the daddy life thing. Like, having our babies around and stuff, it was hard to link up a lot of the time. And so I'd be sending him ideas at like 1 a.m, and he'd be writing, and then like we'd link up and record it and then adjust it and then go back and write more stuff. And yeah, it was a bit of a weird one because typically we both write in person with other people, but we didn't really have the opportunity to do this, but it still came out like really, really strong, I feel.
Mm-hmm. Do you think this is why you kind of went the animated video route as well?
Yeah, for sure. So we had sort of storyboards written up for a bunch of videos, obviously over 2021 for like my solo stuff and the Hindsight Hotel, over 2020 with my solo stuff and the Hindsight Hotel EP. But again, I think like working with Joshy Rich, the guy who animated it, I think that just added a whole other layer of like quirkiness and humor to some of the bars, and then obviously like the overall package as a whole, like I think it added to the lightness of the project in a way, having those animations. And Josh absolutely smashed it as well, man. I think I like both videos, but I think the Find Space video is so damn funny, like with the big baby Leon with the ray guns and stuff, and it just kills me off when I watch it.
It's crazy, man. It's sick video, and I really rate like I love animated videos as well because you can convey so much more
Yeah, for sure.
than you necessarily can in like a like a real life video. But so going back to the beginning, man. So tell me more about like yourself as an artist, how you first got into writing music and producing.
So it's I started playing guitar when I was like 10 years old. I've always been into music because my dad had like huge record collection and stuff, but wasn't really like a musician himself. And basically I'd always loved music, but I didn't have the confidence to sort of really pick up an instrument until I, funnily enough, watched School of Rock. I watched School of Rock and I was like, of all things, I was like, holy shit, these kids are like my age and they're literally shredding. Because when I was a kid, I thought that like you were like some sort of god to play guitar, like Hendrix or Clapton, or to sing like the dude from Aerosmith or Robert Plant or whatever. Then I saw these kids and it sounds crazy, but I was like, holy shit, these kids are shredding it. And I was just like, fuck this, man, get me a guitar for my birthday. And then the rest was history. And then with producing, I've just been playing in bands for like most of my teen years, playing in like metal, hardcore, punk bands and stuff like that. And then I just decided around the age of 15, 16, like, I think I've got enough of a understanding on like, playing guitar and writing songs. I want to learn how to like capture this and record it. And I started getting into like hip hop and dubstep around like 15, 16. And yeah, it just sort of transcended from there really, like, and sort of, I guess, just trickled down, and all the different genres ended up filtering into my production style.
Yeah, man. I mean, you mentioned earlier that you listen to a bit of like grunge and like alternative rock and stuff,
Yeah.
which you draw influence from. Are there any like particular bands that you rate from? Because like Seattle grunge, like 90s grunge, is like my shit. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, nice.
I think like Alice in Chains, even though they're kind of, I think, unfairly categorized as grunge when they're more kind of metal, but obviously like Soundgarden, Nirvana, like those kinds of bands. But yeah. Were we talking that kind of thing?
Yeah, so like I'd say like if we're going into those realms, there's a mix of say like I'd say sort of like I'm really big on Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and Nirvana from sort of like the grunge Seattle rock scene. But I'm also really into like sort of certain American hardcore bands from like recent years, like Title Fight, if you've heard of them.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge fan of like Title Fight, Balance and Composure, which is sort of like an alternative rock grunge. They sort of like pull in a load of different styles, but like super ambient, but kind of grungy at the same time, which is kind of a weird mix to have. And then, I mean, there's a lot of like just straight up like rock from when I was rock and metal that I still sort of have on playlists and stuff going around, like classic rock that my dad would listen to when I was around, sort of like Led Zeppelin and Hendrix and stuff like that, just because it's sort of like super nostalgic for me to listen to. But yeah, I mean, I used to play in like hardcore metal bands a lot. and I used to play in like deathcore bands. So the reach is kind of fast spreading, I guess, in terms of where I draw my influence from.
So it was a bit later on, you said, that you got into like hip hop and dubstep and that kind of thing. So what was what was the artist, or what was the record that got you into hip hop, man? Because we're a hip hop podcast, so I got to ask this shit, you know?
Yeah. So I'd say, let's have a think. Around that time that I was like joining college, because hip hop had always been around. Like my dad had like NWA albums and Dre albums and stuff like that. Like he listened to all types of music, but he leaned more towards blues and rock. So it was always around. But when I was sort of like in college, around 16, I think, my first year of college, I think that was the year that the Dr. Lecter album came out by Action Bronson. And I was already listening to like classics like Dre, Tribe Called Quest, Guru, all those sorts of dudes anyway, because they were sort of on your radar. And I kind of went over there because I was like, well, I know they already exist and they kill it, so I'm going to sort of have a look at this. But then there was like a lot of modern stuff coming out, like you had Joey Bad's 1999 around the time I was at college. You had Dr. Lecter. I mean, even to a degree, like I liked him back then, even though he was doing some mad corny stuff. But like Mac Miller was putting out some good stuff at the time as well, like with tracks like Nike's on My Feet. Obviously, he had bare cheesy shit as well, which I'm not going to deny.
Donald Trump and that.
yeah, exactly. But there was like artists that were sort of, it was like the sort of there was like a new wave of boom bap almost that was happening around like a decade ago.
I remember this really well. I mean, I think I'm a bit older, but like there was still, you know, relatively like recent, I guess. But that's crazy. Yeah, I remember that camp because they were all like the freshman year, weren't they? I remember all being on like the cover, like Joey Badass and Action Bronson. But that Dr. Lecter album is fucking insane. It's all like Tommy Mass, isn't it? I think he produced the whole album. Like Shiraz and like Larry Zonska and all those tracks.
When I love that album, I went on to listen. What's the album that has Central Bookings on it? I can't remember.
It's not well done.
Static Selector. Yeah, it's well done with Static Selector.
Yeah.
But basically, I heard Dr. Lecter first, and I was literally like, at that time, because of like my sort of like dipping my fingers into soul and funk when I was a kid with the rock and stuff through my dad, when I heard Action Bronson and Joey Badass, that was like, this is what I want from hip hop at this time. Like I want super smooth, jazzy, boom bappy beats. And I just want like, you know, sort of, obviously I was like 16, 17. So that punchline flow was just like killing me at the time. I was loving it. I still do now. But when I discovered those sorts of artists, I was just like, holy shit, this is exactly what I want from hip hop. And then as time went on through like my 2, 3, 4 years at college and uni, the sort of like the palette started getting more experimental, and then I started sort of getting into artists which are like now my favorites, sort of like Flatbush Zombies and Danny Brown, and people that really do push out that experimental side of like to the point where like it's almost like bordering on alternative and rock.
Oh man, yeah,
really dark shit.
Danny Brown is fucking incredible. I think he's very like polarizing in terms of like his delivery and everything else. Like if you were a complete layman and you were to like listen to Danny Brown, not knowing what to expect, it would be an interesting experiment to witness, man. Do you know what I mean?
I did. At that time, like it was like shortly after I was like balls deep in like, you know, pure backpack boom bap type stuff. And then like my friend Aaron, who
I boom bap, I like that.
Yeah, that'll be my next project, man. When I went around his house and we were singing in a hardcore band at the time. He was singing, I was screaming, and he was like, dude, check this guy out. And he put on Danny Brown's ODB track, and I was just like, what in the fuck is this? Like, what the fuck is this? And then after like 2 listens, I was like, I love it. I literally love everything about it. And I think it was because I really like sort of throwing people the unexpected. And I think that's kind of feeds back into my own music. Like, because I switch up my sort of branding and who I am for each release. And I definitely get that from artists like Danny Brown and Flatbush Zombies and MF Doom, who, you know, like rappers especially have influenced me to repackage myself. Like, especially those sorts of three artists that I just mentioned, because they just, have such distinct differences within their own groups, you know, and they can make whatever they like.
Danny Brown there, man. I mean, like he's got bars as well. I mean, like even did you listen to Black and Brown, the project he did with Black Milk?
Yeah,
so I think on Fat Beats. I mean, it's just crazy. It's just bars, you know.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. It's good because he can like, the thing that I love about Danny Brown is when I first saw him, I was like, holy shit, this dude's just crazy and he's fun to listen to. But then when I delved into the Triple X tape, there were tracks like DNA on it where he's talking about like his family's past drug addictions and and I'm like, holy shit, man, this guy goes in. Like,
yeah,
he's
man.
a very emotive rapper.
He's an open book, man. He's an open book for sure.
Yeah,
like,
and
I remember,
I take that for my shit as well, for sure.
Some early interviews of him, and he's just like, because he's really endearing when you listen to him like give interviews and stuff. He's just like really likable, you know. He's like, but he's just really candid about his like past with like being addicted, like selling crack and all of that stuff. And he's just like, yeah. Did you ever watch those like interviews he did with ASAP Rocky as well? Because they were like so surreal.
Talking about there's one way he's talking about like how he went behind like a Wendy's or something, and like some old crackhead take her teeth out and blow him, man. Like, that was one of the first interviews I watched with him, I think, like shortly after my friend showed me that track. I might be remembering the timeline wrong, but like he showed me that track, and then a few weeks or like a few months after that, I saw these interviews, and I'm like, who is this guy? Like, I just want to, like, with a character as polarizing as like Danny Brown, just even if you don't like their music, you just want to know everything about them because he's so like interesting, and like his story, he's so good at telling stories and shit as well. Yeah. And as you said, he's just completely open about everything that he talks about, and I think that like is, especially in like the transition that we're seeing in hip hop as well. I think that's like a really admirable thing for him to be as open about like his like nasty past, I guess, as he has been. Because even in that video, ASAP Rocky's like, "You're nasty, dude." Like, he's just like, "You're gross." Some of the shit
it's a really strange and unlikely friendship as well that they have, because like ASAP Rocky strikes me as someone who's very like about business, like clean cut. Like, do you know what I mean? And Danny Brown's just this like fucking mad uncle, you know. Like, but you know, Atrocity Expedition that came out. Is it Expedition or Exhibition? He's one of the two. Expedition. But and that video on there that Jonah Hill directed for Ain't It Funny?
So good.
Fucking mad.
So good. Yeah. And like, that's another thing, is there's another dude that like I absolutely love, man. Jonah Hill is like,
he's a
like he's such a genuine dude. Like, and you can see that, like, I don't know if you saw the Hot 97 interview he did just before they dropped mid-90s, but really, really good interview. And he's just talking about like being around skateboarding and music throughout like the 90s that he based that film on. And he's just a really, really genuine guy. But going back to that video, when I saw that they were collaborating, I was just like, this is going to be fucking awesome. I just know from the get-go that it's going to be good. And I love Danny's acting in the video as well. I love like the real over-the-top sort of like bordering on hamminess when he's like dying in the bed, and they're like, he's like, why aren't you helping me? And they're like totally ignoring him, like eating their cereal, watching TV and shit.
Yeah, dark satire.
Yeah.
I watched mid-90s when it came out. I was like pretty waved though, so I can't really. I need to watch it again, but I just remember it reminded me a lot of you know, Kids. You know that film from like the early 90s. But yeah, man, I need to give that a rewatch, because when I did enjoy it, I remember enjoying it, and I remember Jonah Hill, when they dropped the soundtrack for it, because it's obviously all kind of mid-90s hip hop. He did like a little introduction on Spotify as well. Do you remember that?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, that was cool. So, if there was anyone you could work with, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Ooh, that's a tough one to answer, because I think I'd like to venture into like working with like certain directors and stuff for like music videos. I'm terrible with answering the music question, because it depends. I always think of it like, what would I want to make? Like, you know what I mean? Like, would I want to make like a blues song? Or if we're talking like hip hop artists, I'd really love to collaborate with Eric from Flatbush Zombies. I really, 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 really dig his production. I think in terms of his lyricism, I don't think in terms of his presence. I think in terms of his lyricism, he's the best rapper in Flatbush Zombies. And modern and alive, I'd say Eric the Architect. He's just an absolute G. And I met him on my birthday actually in Copenhagen. He was a really, really nice guy. He was like outside talking to everyone for like 3 hours after the show and stuff. So I'd say Eric the Architect from Flatbush. If we're gonna go, I'm gonna go give a dead one as well though. And this sounds crazy, but I really, really want to sample. I'd love to have gotten John Bonham in the studio and just sampled his drums, just like got him to do whatever he wanted for like an hour and then just chopped it all up and made like beats and shit out of him with him. That would have been crazy.
That's a good answer, man. That's a good answer.
Yeah, again, that comes from like the love of the classic rock and the big crashy open drums and all that stadium shit, you know.
Oh man, so I've got to ask as well. So the last episode we dropped was with Versus Bang, like Essex rapper. He's based in Hollywood now, and he's a massive WWF fan. So when I dropped that, you reached out and you were like, "Oh fucking hell, yeah, I'm a big fan of that shit, man." So like, got us onto talking a bit about the classic era. So like, who is your favorite wrestler? Because I've got a feeling I might know who it is.
Yeah. Again, I'm like terrible for like definitive final answers.
And someone said that we should probably do a offshoot wrestling podcast. And
yeah.
In an ideal world, if time wasn't an object, then that would definitely be something I'd pursue. But unfortunately, just need to hijack the hip hop podcast I have with WWF.
Yeah, it's fine, man. I'm on board if you need anyone. I'd probably say.
Do you notice that I refer it to WWF and not WWE because like I'm not about WWE, man.
We never had accepted it, man. We're not accepting it yet. It's still WWF. I'd probably say my favorite wrestler, just for his sheer charisma and character, is probably Randy Savage, the Macho Man. I just think like that dude's character is like. His promo work was just so fucking funny, man. Like if you watch back some of his promo work now, like I don't know if you've seen the cream of the crop thing that he did. Where he's like pulling out those little every now he just pulls like one out between Gene Okerlund's ears, just like cream of the crop. I was just like, when I first watched that, I was like crying. It's still one of my favorite things. I'd say Macho Man, but I'm interested to know who you think might be my favorite wrestler.
I thought you were going to come through with Mick Foley.
Oh yeah, see, he's definitely up there. But I think the thing about like it's with wrestling, it's like music for me. Like it changes depending on like that certain period. Because I'll go down a route of watching like loads of Mick Foley matches and reading his book, like I said I was with you before, and then it will switch and I'll just watch like nothing but Eddie Guerrero matches, or like, you know what I mean? Because I've got the WWE network and I just binge that shit. So yeah, it changes with the seasons, man.
It's mad, isn't it? Because it's something that it's like I accept that it's not real, but it's still so entertaining. I just have that kind of dissonance, It's like it's such like a camp spectacle, but it's so good. I can't explain why I'm so entertained by it, but it's so fucking awesome. Like, and
I get a lot of people who love MMA being like, I don't get how you like love wrestling, but don't really love MMA. And I'm just like, it just doesn't do it for me. I think I love the like theatrics. I love exactly, like the OTT-ness of it,
Like how horrible like Vince McMahon is, like the Beyond the Mat documentary where he's there's that wrestler called Puke, and he has a really like short-lived career. I think he like injured himself or he was like paralyzed or something really tragic happened to him.
He got paralyzed shortly into his career, didn't he?
Yeah, it's fucked, man. But that like
really
interview where they're trying to come up with a gimmick and he's like, "That's your name, it's Puke," and he's like, "You're gonna puke." I'm like, this is sinister as fuck.
Vince McMahon is a crazy motherfucker, man. He's a mental fucking dude, I tell you.
But it's just it's weird because there's like correlation between like wrestling and like rap music as well. Because I remember owning like WWF Aggression, Do you remember that album where it had like
Yeah.
Method Man on it, had like R-Rated Rugged Man was on there, even like C
I
Murder was on there,
mentioned
man.
that in my wordplay interview, I think.
Did you?
Yeah, because they were like talking about tracing back, and I was talking about School of Rock being one of the reasons that I got the music, and I was talking about having, I think it was the Aggression CD2 where it had Rock on the front holding a pie, and he did that tune with fucking, who did he do a tune with? He did a tune with like, why is it skipping my mind? He did a tune with a rapper, like a really known, maybe Big Daddy Kane or something like that. I'll find it and send it to you, man. It's a questionable tune, but it's fucking hilarious. But yeah, I remember those CDs, man. They were hard.
But it's weird, like it just pops up in everyday life. Like even we talked before we were recording about like the Shotgun the Bars contest that we just put on, and like you've got everyone has like a favorite that they're gunning for, and then there's like a villain as well that like everyone's kind of like fuck. Do you know what I mean? Putting down, and there was a bit of controversy that happened as well. Like we had to go to a revote. Like there was this lad like Nino who went up against Lomax in the semi-final, and then at the last minute I was like monitoring the voting, and he's like, the voting went up like 200 votes within like 2 minutes, and I said, oh, that doesn't look right. So I reached out and I was like, what are you doing, man? And then we announced it all, and then like he was kind of portrayed as this like villain. Everyone's like, oh.
No.
It's like reminded me of wrestling again, just like, Nino.
Yeah.
I think that says more about my fucking weird mind.
Yeah, for sure. Like I was saying to Rez, I don't know how sold he is on the idea, but I was just like, it'd be funny to do like almost like promos for EPs as like fucking wrestling promos, where it's like you dressed up in like some really over the top like muscle suit, like promoting your own EP with like pure aggression, like nothing but pure aggression. It would work for rappers as well. Like it would work so well for rappers who've got fair aggro. Just put them in like one big suit.
No, exactly, man. Well, that's it. It's just you got to try it, I guess. But I was saying to you, like before, like
that's I got to ask. Yeah, who's your at the moment?
That's to be honest, man. Like I think it probably would have been, it would have been Mankind back in the day easily because Mick Foley's just like outside of the ring, he's so likable, like he's so like endearing, and he seems really cool, like a proper family man. And remember the documentary as well, where he brings his family to like watch the is it the Hell in a Cell with the Undertaker? Who was it with? I can't remember.
I think it's the I Quit match with The Rock where he chair shots him like 50 times in front of his kids or something. And
was it that?
Kids, like in the front row, and his kids are in the front row with his wife, watching him get handcuffed and like beaten with a steel chair. Just like that is straight up trauma for your kids, dude.
Yeah, man, it's horrendous. So it's probably him because
he's committed to his craft, that's for sure.
But also because he's like unlikely, because all the others are like real muscle bound and just like, and he's just like some big burly guy, like doesn't look particularly athletic, but he was just mental. I'd say Kane as well before they unmasked him. Like I fucking loved like Kane when he just like didn't speak besides the whole like little voice box bit he did.
Yeah. That shit was sick, man. Around that time that he came in was when I really started watching avidly, I reckon. Because I watched like WCW on channel 5 because it was on real late and my parents would tape it so I wanted to watch it. I'd watch it the day after. And then they started showing WWE on Channel 4 when I was like 4 or 5 years old. And then it was all like taping it at night, watching it before school and all that shit. So yeah, it's I started watching it around the time that I believe Kane came in, or just after when Kane had come in properly, in like 97 or 98, when I was like 4 or 5. So shit, that's a long time ago. That's like 22 years ago now. Fuck.
Oh man. So anyway, off on a bit of a tangent there, but it was a good chat on wrestling. Always welcome, man. But in like a relatively short space of time, you've already kind of shown people what you are capable of as an artist, and obviously you've already touched upon different kind of sounds that you've incorporated into each individual project. But what creative direction do you want to take things going forward?
It's weird because like in terms of like I guess the future releases hold. I don't know necessarily how the projects themselves are going to be packaged. I'm going to keep making like soul jams and stuff like that. I'm going to make those sort of like more of a continual thing. Like I will be switching between the lightheartedness and the soul and the melancholic soul. But I think I'm just going to try with each release to push out a more, I don't know, not like experimental. So I don't think it's like, to me, I don't know if it's that experimental, but to the listener, I want it to just be pushing whatever boundary of the genre that it sits in for them. So like if it's like alt rock or melancholic soul, I want it to just be a little bit more on the borderline of melancholic soul or the soul jams. I want to just push it a little bit more with every release. I don't know how the releases themselves are going to be packaged, but I do know that I'm just going to try and keep reinventing and keep pushing those boundaries with each release, really, as much as I can. Like, for example, I've started working on the project with Rez next, and I'd say that I've pushed the elements of production where it's like the smoother bits are like even smoother, whereas there are elements of it that are like much darker that still work with it. So just trying to push the sound a bit further, really, with each project.
Nice one, man. Was Rez just like, so how smooth can you take this? And you're just like, yeah.
Well, lie down. Yeah, I mean, I think with Rez, like, I think the good thing about him is working with him. He's really open to like whatever I want to push to him, and like not just for my solo stuff as well. Like with the stuff that I send over for our collaborative stuff. Whilst I know it probably might not sound to the average hip hop head like it's too much of a step away, I do like to sort of pull people a little bit out of their comfort zone with each collaboration that I do. And I think that came off really, really well with Rez, working on lower tempos, having him sing a bit more, and yeah, just experimenting with the beats a bit more, you know?
Yeah, man, definitely. And I think as well, like it's a good thing that Green Brick has expanded in that way. Like it's still in line with, so all the artists on there kind of gel really well together, but it's not just kind of, you're not just like a hip hop artist, and it's like he's got faith in making the label a bit more versatile. So
Yeah.
that's basically what he said when we first spoke to him about it. But since seeing the journey, it's just been incredible to witness. Do you know what I mean? And it's worked so organically. It's not just being like, okay, like Mac Lloyd's the outlier, like all of these guys, and then there's Mac Lloyd. Like you work so well with everyone.
Yeah, thank you, man.
So it's been an exciting journey so far, man. So
yeah, I think over the last sort of year, especially with COVID, like me and like I've pieced together collaborations now with most of the people on the label that whether they see the light of day or not really mattering right now, but the fact that we've been able to piece together a bunch of different collaborations, and on each of those, neither one of the collaborators is compromising what they're doing too much. Like I've got a tune with Joe where it's like I feel that it's very straight down the middle of our styles. I think the stuff with Rez is very straight down the middle of our styles.
Just for context, that's Joe Byrne for anyone listening.
Joe Byrne, yeah. Go check his new single Hillsides. It's fucking banging with DJ Rogan Leaf Dog. It's fucking fire. But yeah, I feel like Green Brick over the last year has really become like a family unit. Really, I feel like I can present, and I feel like everyone else on the label can like present ideas openly, and like if we can all talk to each other like and say that might not work, or we want to do this, or I don't really want to do this. It's a really good collective to be working with. I think the best one for my fit at the moment for sure.
That's good to hear, man. So the Melancholic Soul Club is out on the 18th of March, so that's next week as of when this episode drops. We're going to put links to everything we talked about in the YouTube comment section below, so make sure you check the description. So before we wrap things up, Mac Lloyd, is there anything else that you want to plug? Anyone you want to shout out, or anything else you want to talk about?
I'll shout out a few people if I forget anyone, and I'm sorry, but I'm terrible forgetting people. So obviously Green Brick family. I'm going to shout out Jody, who helped me piece together the acoustic video with Liam of Artifact Studios. My man Brian Reed, who I spoke to last night, he'll probably watch this. And anyone who's checked out the song as of recent, I really, really want to put emphasis on the thank you for checking out that song, because there's a reason why I didn't release it for 3 years, and it was partially out of like my own anxiety and whether people would like it or not. And the response has been really, really warming and honest, and everyone's been really genuine with it. And it's, whilst like, you know, I release a lot of music, it is like a daunting thing putting yourself out there, even when you are a very open book, to the point where you're speaking that openly. So just thank you really to everyone that's checked it out and will be checking it out. It really does mean everything to me. So
respect, man. And so where can people find your music?
So search Mac Lloyd on any streaming services or the Green Brick Records Bandcamp. You can find me on Insta at The Real Mac Lloyd, no imposters. And then facebook.com/Mac Lloyd Music. Although I don't really use my Facebook as intensely. So if you're going to follow me, find me on Instagram.
Nice one, man. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm glad we finally managed to make this happen, man.
Yeah, we got there eventually, man. We made it, baby.
I'm looking forward to the 20-track power ballad project that you're putting together. But we've been Shotgun The Aux. Thanks as always for listening or watching. Go subscribe. Check out the back catalogue as well. All the usual platforms. Mac Lloyd, been an absolute pleasure, man. Take it easy.
There you go, man.
We're out.